Hey there, historians, Brian here. After the American Revolution, the French Revolution, and the Haitian Revolution, you may be sensing a trend. The determination to end absolutism, regardless of how much bloodshed it may require. The age of revolutions is full steam ahead, and there's no stopping this train now. Today we'll be looking further south, to Central and South America. Our guide will be a man so well known and so beloved to much of the region that he is often called the George Washington of South America. But I like him by another name better. His real name is Simón Bolívar, but many call him El Libertador. No, it's not his wrestling name, it means the Liberator. We'll learn how he was involved in the independence movements of no less than 6 countries in Latin America, one of which bears his name. Our guiding questions today are: how were Spain's colonial social classes organized, and how did that organization play into the revolutionary spirit of Latin Americans? How was Simón Bolívar able to inspire a revolution? And why did Bolívar's state of Gran Colombia fail? As a big idea, consider how Bolívar's independence movement fit into the larger age of revolutions and the decline of absolutism. What caused the colonial political structure to break down? Vamos, historians, para tierra y libertad. In some ways, the social structure in the British colonies contributed to the unrest in the 1760s. Wealthy American landowners like George Washington felt like second-class citizens because they had no avenue to participate in English politics, while a person of his status who was born and lived in England could. In Spain's colonies, the class structure was similar in that peninsulares, or Spaniards who were born in Spain, held the prestige and power, while criollos, also known as Creoles, or people of Spanish descent who were born in the Americas, had to take a back seat to them. Below them were mestizos, or people of mixed European and indigenous ancestry, as well as those of mixed European and African ancestry, or mulattoes. And of course, there are those who had no European ancestry at all, free or enslaved Africans and indigenous peoples. Let's take a second to consider how this may play into the Age of Revolutions with a guiding question and a follow-up question. How were Spain's social classes organized? And now put yourself in the shoes of someone living in a Spanish colony. Based on this hierarchy, do you think that there were any people that may have been unhappy and wanted to change their standing? Why? From the perspective of a Creole, living in a Spanish colony wasn't all that bad. Creoles were near the top of the social hierarchy, and Spain's government had the resources to protect them. There were many reasons not to revolt. You'd have to ask yourself, what would I gain from this, and what would I lose? Enter Simón Bolívar, a Creole from Caracas, Venezuela. He was born into a wealthy family in 1783, the same year that the United States achieved its independence from Great Britain. When Bolívar lost both of his parents, he grew close with an African slave working in his home, who he felt put more personal care into his upbringing than his new guardians. This may have influenced his outlook on slavery as an institution in Latin America. Like many Creoles at the time, Bolívar had the opportunity to move to Spain, where his caretaker had tangential relationships with Queen Luisa. There, he witnessed the drama of aristocratic court secondhand and developed a distaste for it. It was here, alongside other Creoles, that he gained a formal education. He learned about Enlightenment ideals like representative government and the social contract, which influenced his outlook. Bolívar's rage about the inefficiency and injustice of colonial life and Spanish rule led him to travel to France and Rome, where he swore to end Spanish rule in America. He returned to Venezuela again in 1807 and discussed independence with other wealthy Creoles, but found that he was much more revolutionary than any of them. Then, in 1808, Napoleon Bonaparte conquered Spain and installed his brother Joseph as the new leader. Up to this point, the notion of the divine right of kings had lingered in the ultra-traditional and very Catholic Spain. All of a sudden, their king was removed from power and a French guy put his brother on the throne. Not only might this have shaken Spanish confidence in the divine right of kings, but throughout the colonies, a weakened Spain opened the door for disgruntled Creoles to contemplate change. In 1811, Creoles in Venezuela decided to form their own representative body and held elections. While Bolívar and some governors supported independence, the Congress originally voted to declare that the young Ferdinand VII was still King of Spain and to support him. But an independence movement grew more popular and a war for Venezuela's independence broke out later that year. Unlike other Creoles, who mainly supported the war for personal gain, Bolívar knew that a revolution would need the support of the masses. In the 1780s, Spain had violently stamped out the Tupac Amaru Segundo Rebellion, an indigenous and mestizo uprising in Peru, and significant animosity toward Spanish rule lingered within these communities. Bolívar tapped into this anti-colonial sentiment, promising to fight for the rights of mixed-race Latin Americans and the emancipation of enslaved people. Returning to an essential question, how was Simón Bolívar able to inspire a revolution? He was able to connect these seemingly unrelated ideas to tell the lower classes,
"You've been oppressed. Clearly, the divine right of kings doesn't make sense because of Joseph Bonaparte's rule over Spain. The existing social hierarchy is unfair, and any attempts to change it are met with violence. We should unite our efforts and rise up against European rule of our homeland. Para tierra y libertad!"
Venezuela declared independence in 1811. It established 2 successive republics, but they failed to take root due to an earthquake and a huge military defeat in 1812, and later some local uprisings and a Spanish royal reconquest in 1813. Bolívar moved into Colombia in 1815 with aims to liberate New Granada, a Spanish holding. This uprising was also subdued by Spanish forces. Bolívar was forced into exile in Haiti, which was now led by a revolutionary named Alexandre Pétion. Bolívar promised to end slavery in South America in exchange for Pétion's military support. Finally, he returned to Venezuela and established a third republic in 1817. Thanks to Haitian military support and some key victories, the Third Republic stuck. From here, Bolívar and his allies marched on to crush the Spanish in Colombia in 1819, as well as in Venezuela and Panama in 1821, which finally guaranteed Venezuelan independence. As he fought to liberate Ecuador in 1822, he met with another notable revolutionary, José de San Martín, who he'd partner with to secure Peru's freedom in 1824, before finally ousting the Spanish from Bolivia in 1825. Venezuela, New Granada, Ecuador, and Panama merged to form Gran Colombia. Bolívar was named president of Gran Colombia, Peru, and Bolivia. But he was unable to hold Gran Colombia together. Leaders in various regions wanted their own local control. That kind of makes sense because shirking off foreign leaders in favor of local control was one of the core tenets of the revolutionary movement in the first place, right? Unfortunately, different parts of Gran Colombia couldn't seem to agree on a unified national policy. Bolívar was discouraged by political disputes tearing the newly independent nation apart. He went so far as to say,
"America is ungovernable. Those who have served the revolution have plowed the sea."
Just as the United States Congress found that forming their own government was a messy business, so too did Latin Americans. In the late 1820s, Bolívar sought to implement a more centralized model of government, including a lifetime presidency and the ability to choose a successor, rather than holding contentious elections, a departure from the Enlightenment principles on which the revolution was based. Bolívar's attempts to strengthen his own power led to his exit from leadership, and he was nearly assassinated before dying of tuberculosis in Caracas in 1830. Gran Colombia was disbanded in 1831, and its constituent parts, Panama, Ecuador, Colombia, and Venezuela, are all independent sovereign nations today. So let's review. What caused Gran Colombia to fail? Despite a lackluster end to an otherwise amazing military and political career, Bolívar is celebrated as a national and cultural icon throughout Latin America. His memory is strongly attached to sentiments of nationalism and patriotism and continues to inspire people to fight for their rights to this day. And believe it or not, this is just the beginning for Latin America. We still have more to discover in Mexico, Brazil, and the rest of South America. We won't stick to just one part of the region, historians, because as you know, history is everywhere.
Hey, hey.